Hello viewers, good afternoon. I'm Abhishek Bhadra and today we are going to discuss on ideology and ideological state apparatus which was first formulated by Louis Althusser. Today we have Ms. Srijoy Bhattacharjee who is going to discuss on this matter. Ms. Srijoy has done her Masters in Film Studies from Jadavpur University. She was a visiting faculty at ILEAD. Currently she is associated with Maulana Abul Kalam Azad Institute of Asian Studies. Ma'am, if you could elaborate on the framework of ideology and ideological state apparatus and discuss in brief about how it is relevant to today's scenario of cultural studies.
This essay, that is Ideology and Ideological State Apparatus, which was written by Louis Althusser, and he was an Marxist philosopher. And what he tried to do was he tried to give a theoretical basis to some basic ideas or some basic formulations which was there already in Marxist tradition. So what he did was he took those ideas and he tried to give a theoretical framework. This essay was first published in the year of 1970. So you can understand that it's not in the framework of cultural studies. It is not too old or too distant. Okay. Though if we try to analyze this essay in the context of cultural studies, in the context of mass media, then the whole concept of mass media, the whole concept of cultural studies is a very new topic, is a very new discourse which is continuously going on, or which is continuously, many writings, many cross analysis of Louis Althusser has been still there. But what we will in today's discussion or in today's lecture, what we will try to do is we will try to understand that what theoretical framework or what the essay is actually talking about. And then later on, probably we will try to hint on how can we place the mass media scenario, the media institutions, the cultural theories into this framework, whether we can at all frame it. What are the criticisms that has come upon? So that we will just put a hint on it. First, we will try to look into, Louis Althusser has not completely written this essay keeping in mind to the cultural studies or mass media institutions. So when we are trying to read this essay in this module of mass communications theory, then probably it will be difficult for us to find a link. But you have to keep in mind that this is a theoretical framework which we, in our later analysis, can use when we study the present cultural, when we use it or put this theoretical framework into the cultural scenario or cultural studies scenario. First, I would like to put all the viewers' mind to some basic vocabulary of the Marxist terms. Now, what are the productive forces? Productive forces in totality is, you can say that it's the sum total of the means of production and the labor. That is whatever is needed in order to produce something, to produce a product. Anything, it may be a knowledge, it may be a particular product which can be bought and sold in the market. So and productive force, as I told you, that it is a sum total, we can say that of the means of production plus labor. What are the means of production? That is, you have raw materials, you have infrastructure, you have land. Okay, so whatever you need to produce anything without the labor. Without the labor. So means of production plus labor makes the productive forces. So any force which you need to produce something. Then comes the relations of production. Relations of production means that what kind of relation any productive forces or the producer and the produced or who is producing, these factors of production share among themselves. Maybe the employer and the employee, maybe the employee and the product, maybe the employer and the product. So any kind of the elements who are involved in production, the relation among them, we will consider it as the relations of production.
Even the labor also?
Even the labor also. Okay. Then mode of production, that is in what scenario or in what measure in anything is being produced, whether it is in a capitalist mode, whether it is in a social mode. So what kind of a relation of production and the productive forces is there which constitute any product? So in what condition any product is being produced? Whether the employer and the employee share a capitalist relation of production, I mean, that will determine the mode in which any product will be produced. How is it been produced? Conditions of production, that is, what are the conditions that you need in order to produce any product? That whether you need a hierarchy between the producer and the what is being produced and to the who are producing.
Demographical, social,
time, and anything that you need. I mean, what kind, or even the relationships, the kind of capital, the kind of time, the kind of anything, that is what are the conditions that I need which has to be preserved when I produce anything. The other terms I will come upon once I enter into the realm of the essay. Now, according to Marx says that a social formation which did not reproduce the conditions of production at the same time as it produced would not last a year. What does that mean? For example, say we are producing something, we are producing knowledge. You are at one force of production, I am another. Maybe I am one who is producing, and I want you to consume that product. So we have a relation of production, and also there is a condition of production. That is, I am hierarchically in a more superior position, and therefore I am saying, and you're bound to listen to me. You know that I have some acquired knowledge, so there is some conditions of production. On the next day, when you exceed this conditions of production, or once you acquired these conditions of production, maybe in the next lecture you will defy to listen it to me. Ma'am, please, I don't want to listen to you because you have said this and I know this. So there is a condition of production that I know something more and you don't know any. I mean, you or don't know or know or not know in the way that I know. Therefore, you are bound to listen to me. So therefore, there is a condition of production, and if I want that this production of knowledge has to be continued throughout the year and year after, till the day God grants me, I will want this condition of production to maintain, to be reproduced, because this hierarchy I have to maintain, these conditions of production I have to maintain, I have to reproduce. Not only maintain but reproduce, because if I don't maintain this condition of production, this process, even though social formation will not be there, it will vanish. It cannot sustain. So this is what Marx said, that if a social formation, that is the society, how is it informed? It has certain relations of production, it has some norms, and if it has to maintain that, if it has to reproduce, then what it has to reproduce, actually not the product itself, but also the conditions of production. The conditions that is been there already, which is allowing that product is to be produced and consumed. So what Althusser adds to this notion of what Marx says is that every social formation must reproduce the conditions of production at the same time as it produces, and in order to be able to produce, what it is actually reproducing is, one, it's the productive forces. That is, you always have to increase your productive forces or reproduce your productive forces, right? And also the existing relations of production. Althusser says that reproduction of the productive forces. I told you that productive forces means what? One is the means of production. That is, if you consider for a film, the means of production will be other than the labor. You need a good camera, you need a good store.
The most important will be the story.
The story, the raw materials that once makes the film, and also the reproduction of the labor power. Now, for the means of production, Althusser says that this reproduction is something which takes place, it's not about, for example, he gives an example. He gives, for example, a person, a capitalist X, he owns a wool farm, and for his flocks, for taking out their wool, for making it into wool, then selling it, there are machines. Now, these machines will be worn out, depreciated. Now what if he has to reproduce the means of production? Then he has also to reproduce this means of production. I mean, he has to replace his machines, he has to replace all kinds of machines. I mean, from extracting wool from the flock of sheep, then making it into wool, selling it, all these raw materials, the land where the sheep exists or reproduces, everything he has to continuously reproduce. Now just see one thing, that the machine that takes out the wool, or machine that takes out the wool from the raw material, these machines he does not himself produce. Okay. It comes from someone else. Okay, so that department also, there also probably that capitalist Y who makes those products, I mean those machines, even that capitalist will also have to reproduce his productive forces. So this is an endless chain that goes on, and the surplus value, I mean, the profit, I mean, whatever I invest in my capital and whatever I earn from that, and return, and the profit, what we call is what remains, that the extent of surplus value, that whether I have to increase that or how will I calculate that, for a capitalist, that surplus value is dependent, I mean, with respect to the reproduction of the means of production. This is an endless chain that goes on. Okay. Right? Another is the reproduction of labor power. Now, while reproduction of labor power, Althusser says that what is the ultimate surety that this labor will again come back in the next morning and standing and waiting for the gate of the factory to open is their wages. That is, the capitalist pays the labor their wages. This is the wage which, pays for, or which is responsible for the material existence of that labor. That labor, with that wage, he gives his electricity bill, he gives his house rent, he lives, he eats, he even sends his children to schools for getting them educated. And this is how he says, Althusser says, I'll come to this part in a bit later, that this is the school where the proletariat, reproduces himself, because this school, he will consider it as an ideological state apparatus, which probably inbuilds some kind of ideology in a large mass of children in an obvious manner, that you have to learn this because this is what is right and this is what is wrong. And that is how, the values, the morality, the technological know-how that has been given to the children. And that is how one proletariat, that is the labor, reproduces himself through his children once, and he also again reproduces at the back at the factory gate because he get his wage from there. And he says that, Althusser says that it is not only the wage that he is paying to his labor, so that, that labor will again be back, but also in the, socio-technical division of labor we have, that is, in a factory, you have particular posts, you have particular jobs. Each labor is destined to be doing that. So according to that, he not only has to be physically present at the factory gate, but he will also have to be, diversely skilled, right? Okay. Skilled in order to do his particular assigned job, particular assigned posts. Now, where does he learn this skill?
He's actually, I guess he's trained for that.
He's trained for that, right? He's trained where? Althusser says that this mechanism is something which is not taking place within the firm but outside the firm. That is from school, from day one, when this huge flock of children are being inserted into the school teaches them some, literary and scientific literature. He learns how to read, he learns how to teach, he learns how to interpret, how to read the knowledge or the symbols around him. And also, Althusser says that this is something that the motive of this, that you are trying to make a child learn, it is nothing but in the next few years, when this child will be 16 or so, by that time, after that, what he actually learns is to read scientific and the literary language of the industry manuals. Now, I just went on with the infrastructure and superstructure. Hope you know that all the relations of the society are being actually dependent upon the economic relations that people share. Social formation is being based, all these relations actually are based on the economic relations that people have among themselves. That is a very very short definition of infrastructure. And superstructure, that is the whole superstructure of human relations, is actually dependent on the economic and social relations. And Althusser says that this kind of a descriptive language has no meaning if it has not been understood from a reproduction point of view. That how is this been reproduced? When you are trying to reproduce, then whether this description of infrastructure and superstructure has been needed or controlled.
Needed or not, yeah.
This is how a very important discussion starts, that the Marxists have always said that state is nothing but an repressive apparatus. That is, the state always tries, it is an apparatus which is used to maintain its dominant, powerful, hegemonic position and operate its power in order to subjugate the rest of the citizens. Okay, so this is the whole Marxian concept of state, you can say. Now, what Althusser says is that if you consider state in this manner, then probably what is needed, we need to distinguish between two concepts. One is state power, another is state apparatus. That is, state power is something where this power has been regained or retained by the ruling class. This is the power, state is of me, state is composed of me, therefore I want to hold on the state power. And what are the means that I use to, retain back this power is, that is an apparatus. State apparatus.
State apparatus.
So, Althusser tried to break the Marxian concept into two terms, that one is state power, which generally does not change. State power has been assumed by one ruling class or the other. Okay, the state power, whoever holds the state power changes, but the state apparatus are the means by which you can say, what are these? These are the police, maybe you can say military, you can say the other, repressive...
servicemen and all.
The repressing measures that the state takes in order to subdue or, suppress all the citizens. So you can always, you have to keep in mind that these two concepts have to be differentiated. Whenever you read the original essay, then these two concepts you will always come across. One is state power, another is state apparatus. So it's not the state, but state power maybe. Okay, and the Marxist concept of state, they say that the ultimate goal of the proletariat would be that they must seize the state power. Then they will destroy that existing state apparatuses. First, what they will do is, the proletariat must, the ideal stage of the class struggle should be that the proletariat should seize that state power, destroy the existing bourgeois state apparatuses. Okay, the bourgeois police, the bourgeois military, these concepts of state apparatus, they have to destroy that. Because if they don't destroy that, then probably it will only be a change of power.
Do you think that it's still being used till now? The apparatus are being used by the lower classes people, like the same did the bourgeois classes used? Do you think it is?
That's, history will tell. Because after French Revolution, we really saw many, historical changes have happened, where I think only, as I told you, yes, it is a historical fact that it's only the change of state power, whoever is holding state power. But since the apparatuses that is being used and the motive that the concept for which the state exists, that is, there will be a ruling party and ruling class, and all the other rests will be subjected. These concepts, these relations of production have not changed. So therefore probably all the problems arises, because if the motive of what Marx had proclaimed, that when the proletariat takes upon the state apparatus and consequently set a motion in the process for the destruction of the state, that is, this concept of state where there will be a power residue, where somebody is going to exercise its power over the others, this whole conception won't be there. That probably has not happened till yet. Althusser says is, firstly, he has separated these two terms. I hope you have understood
Yeah,
that.
of course,
That
yeah.
the state power is one thing. The state power, in order to retain that state power, uses the state apparatuses.
Right.
Now, he distinguishes the state apparatuses again into two parts. One is the RSS, that is the repressive state apparatus. Another is the ideological state apparatus. Repressive state apparatuses, of course, it uses by violence, by force. Men in uniform, law, order, by force. It will allow you to take into course. The citizens have to be a subject of the state, have to surrender themselves to the state.
Very many years back, when there was no development of science there, the religion used to control. The religion, what to say, it was the ultimate thing, the ultimate one word thing. You have to obey by this. But after few stages, when science began to develop, religion started, like there has been many clashes. For example, if I consider Galileo, they all suppressed Galileo. So what do you want to say about that? Because it's very much evidential proof that the religion also controlled like that by force, whereas religion is not meant to be controlled by force. Do you think this applies to this also?
And now see, religion is something that Althusser, keeps aside for the ideological state apparatus. Now what you are saying is, even then, the church was not the state. Why did people obey to it? Why? That is not because of some written rule or some written law. There was king always. Who was the political, that you can say that absolute monarchy was there. That
But
was
the king
probably
also
the
did
state.
obey the church.
Why? Because of some kind of an ideological determination or some kind of an ideological obligation that they had. That is, surrender to the supreme power, surrender to the supreme God. Because then the despots used by an ideological pill, they used to make people believe that God himself cannot come and rule the world. So therefore he sends the church, the priests and the despots. Sorry for using the term despots, but that was the ideological term that people obeyed church so so devotedly that there was even a question that who is higher, the king or the church. Right. So that is where the subjection relied. That was one ideological belief that people endowed all their educational, their political. Now see, this was not being. The priests did not. By force or by repression did not get that power. The first power was being given voluntarily by the people to them. Right. Because of this belief that God cannot rule us, so he has sent his churchmen, he has sent his priests to rule us.
It was also a concept that God has sent the king is there to rule.
Now these are various the concepts of state, that whether it's a divine rule, that the church, the people, God cannot rule the people directly, so therefore he has sent his representative in the king or in the church. Now, in a more empirical manner, these are the ideological state apparatus that Althusser notes. That is once the religious ISA, the system of different churches. The educational ISA, the system of public and private schools. As I was telling you, that you always have to remember that how to be a good worker or how to be a good manager, this codes of ethics are always being taught or always being coming from the schools. That is the place where people start their gaining.
So these are the main factors: the religious, the schools, the families,
And
the legal matters.
I just want to mention that the communication ISA, that is a press, radio, television, they also continuously goes on telling you what is nationalism, what is chauvinism, what is ethical, what is good, what is
the
right.
media always actually injects us with the things that they want us to make a listen. And this is a common case of which was first, the egg or the chicken. It was really a pleasure. Thank you for sharing a lot of things. We are very proud that we have you here today, and we got to know many things about the ideology, the ideological state apparatus, how the state works, how it is more valid, and how culture, as you said, the media always influences us. There are different kind of films. If I also talk about Charlie Chaplin, The Modern Times is a very good example of it. Then again you talked about the education factor, that is how school actually makes students, is it, are they supporting it or not supporting it, or they ruling it according to their wish, or they're making it or giving them a freedom to live a life. It was really a good session with you, ma'am.